Ancient shrines of Mesopotamia. The Ziggurat. A ziggurat, zigguratum in Akkadian, the stem of zakaram, to protrude, to build high, cognate with other Semitic languages like Hebrew, zakar or zakar. Protrude is a type of massive structure built in ancient Mesopotamia and Iran. It has the form of a terraced compound of successively receding stories or levels. Notable ziggurats include the Great Ziggurat of near Nazariah, the Ziggurat of Akar-Kuf near Baghdad, the no longer extant Etemenanki in Babylon, Chaka Zanbil in Khuzestan, and Sayalk. The Sumerians believed that the gods lived in the temple at the top of the ziggurats, so only priests and other highly respected individuals could enter. Sumerian society offered these individuals such gifts as music, harvested produce, and the creation of devotional statues to entice them to live in the temple. History. The word ziggurat comes from zigguratum, height or pinnacle in ancient Assyrian, from zikkorum or zikarum, to be high up. The ziggurat of is a Neo-Sumerian ziggurat built by King Namu, who dedicated it in honor of Nana/Sin in approximately the 21st century BC during the Third Dynasty. Ziggurats were built by ancient Sumerians, Akkadians, Elamites, Eblaites, and Babylonians for local religions. Each ziggurat was part of a temple complex with other buildings. Before the ziggurats, there were raised platforms that date from the Ubaid period during the 6th millennium BCE. The ziggurats began as platforms, usually oval, rectangular, or square. The ziggurat was a mastaba-like structure with a flat top. The sun-baked bricks make up the core of the ziggurat with facings of fired bricks on the outside. Each step was slightly smaller than the step below it. The facings were often glazed in different colors and may have had astrological significance. Kings sometimes had their names engraved on these glazed bricks. The number of floors ranged from 2 to 7. According to archaeologist Harriet Crawford, it is usually assumed that the ziggurats supported a shrine, though the only evidence for this comes from Herodotus, and physical evidence is non-existent. The likelihood of such a shrine ever being found is remote. Erosion has usually reduced the surviving ziggurats to a fraction of their original height, but textual evidence may yet provide more facts about the purpose of these shrines. In the present state of our knowledge, it seems reasonable to adopt as a working hypothesis the suggestion that the ziggurats developed out of the earlier temples on platforms and that small shrines stood on the highest stages. Access to the shrine would have been by a series of ramps on one side of the ziggurat or by a spiral ramp from base to summit. The Mesopotamian ziggurats were not places for public worship or ceremonies. They were believed to be dwelling places for the gods, and each city had its own patron god. Only priests were permitted on the ziggurat or in the rooms at its base, and it was their responsibility to care for the gods and attend to their needs. The priests were very powerful members of Sumerian and Assyro-Babylonian society. One of the best preserved ziggurats is Chogha or Chagha Zanbil in western Iran. The Sayalk or Salk ziggurat in Kashan, Iran, is the oldest known ziggurat, dating to the early 3rd millennium BCE. Ziggurat designs ranged from simple bases upon which a temple sat to marvels of mathematics and construction which spanned several terraced stories and were topped with a temple. An example of a simple ziggurat is the White Temple of Uruk in ancient Sumer. The ziggurat itself is the base on which the White Temple is set. Its purpose is to get the temple closer to the heavens and provide access from the ground to it via steps. The Mesopotamians believed that these pyramid temples connected heaven and earth. In fact, the ziggurat at Babylon was known as Etemenenki, which means house of the foundation of heaven and earth in Sumerian. The date of its original construction is unknown, with suggested dates ranging from the 14th to the 9th century BC, with textual evidence suggesting it existed in the second millennium. Unfortunately, not much of even the base is left of this massive structure, yet archaeological findings and historical accounts put this tower at 7 multicolored tiers, topped with a temple of exquisite proportions. The temple is thought to have been painted and maintained an indigo color, matching the tops of their tiers. It is known that there were 3 staircases leading to the temple, 2 of which, side flanked, were thought to have only ascended half the ziggurat's heights. Interpretation and significance. According to Herodotus, at the top of each ziggurat was a shrine, although none of these shrines have survived. Functionally, ziggurats offered a high place on which priests could escape rising water that annually inundated lowlands and occasionally flooded for hundreds of kilometers. They also offered security since the shrine was accessible only by way of 3 stairways. A small number of guards could prevent non-priests from spying on the rituals at the shrine on top of the ziggurat, such as initiation rituals like the Eleusinian mysteries, cooking of sacrificial food, and burning of sacrificial animals. Each ziggurat was part of a temple complex that included a courtyard, storage rooms, bathrooms, and living quarters around which a city spread, as well as a place for the people to worship. It was considered to be a sacred structure. Influence. The biblical account of the Tower of Babel has been associated by modern scholars to the massive construction undertakings of the ziggurats of Mesopotamia, and in particular to the ziggurat of Etemenanki in Babylon, in light of the Tower of Babel stele, describing its restoration by Nebuchadnezzar II. According to some historians, the design of Egyptian pyramids, especially the stepped designs of the oldest pyramids, Pyramid of Zoser at Saqqara, 2600 BCE, may have been an evolution from the ziggurats built in Mesopotamia. Others say the Pyramid of Zoser and the earliest Egyptian pyramids may have been derived locally from the bench-shaped mastaba tomb. Although having only crude formal shape, which can be compared to the stepped ziggurats, the shape of the ziggurat experienced a revival in modern architecture and brutalist architecture starting in the 1970s. The Al-Zakhara building is a government building situated in Baghdad. It serves the office of the Prime Minister of Iraq. The Babylon Hotel in Baghdad is also inspired by the ziggurat. The Shet Holyfield Federal Building is colloquially known as the Ziggurat due to its form. It is a United States government building in Laguna Niguel, California, built between 1968 and 1971. Further examples include the Ziggurat in West Sacramento, California, the SIS building in London, and Linnahall building in Tallinn, Estonia.